Good morning. Our lesson for today is about crafting the curriculum, and we will be discussing the teacher as a curriculum designer. So we have the following learning outcomes. As a teacher, one has to be a curriculum designer, curriculum implementer, and curriculum evaluator. These threefold functions are embedded in the teaching profession. Every single day, a teacher plans, implements, and evaluates the curriculum in school. Hence, it would be of great help to know how school curricula are being made or crafted. Crafting a curriculum is like writing a lesson plan. It is like making something with the different components and putting them together in a very creative way. It is a task that all teachers should know and understand, or better still, to know how to craft one. Now, what is a curriculum design? Curriculum design refers to the arrangement of the elements of a curriculum. The four elements of a curriculum are: number one, aims, goals, and objectives. Number two, subject matter or content. 3. Learning activities. And number 4, evaluation. With arranging or organizing the total curriculum from the philosophy down to the contents of different subjects. Curriculum design provides a philosophical way of organizing the contents and elements of the curriculum. As we begin to discuss about curriculum designing, all teachers need to know the different axioms or theorems regarding curriculum as presented by Gordon, Taylor, and Oliva. These axioms will be used to guide curricularists in designing a curriculum. Axioms are principles that practitioners as curriculum designer can use as guidelines or a frame of reference. Number 1. Curriculum change is inevitable, necessary, and desirable. On our previous lesson, it was stated that one of the characteristics of curriculum is its being dynamic. Because of this, teachers should respond to the changes that occur in schools and in their context. Societal development and knowledge revolution come so fast that the need to address the changing condition requires new curriculum designs. Number 2. Curriculum is a product of its time. A relevant curriculum should respond to changes brought about by current social forces, philosophical positions, psychological principles, new knowledge, and educational reforms. And this is also called timeliness. Number 3. Curriculum changes made earlier can exist concurrently with newer curriculum changes. A revision in a curriculum starts and ends slowly. More often, curriculum is gradually phased in and phased out. Therefore, the changes that occur can coexist and oftentimes overlap for long periods of time. Number 4. Curriculum change depends on people who will implement the change. The teachers who will implement the curriculum should be involved in its development, so they should know how to design a curriculum. Because the teachers are the implementers of the curriculum, it is best that they should design and own the changes. This will ensure an effective and long-lasting change. Number 5. Curriculum development is a cooperative group activity. Group decisions in some aspects of curriculum development are suggested. Consultations with the stakeholders, when possible, will add to a sense of ownership. Even learners should participate in some aspect of curriculum designing. Any significant change in the curriculum should involve a broad range of stakeholders to gain their understanding, support, and input. Stakeholders are the teachers, learners, parents, school administrators, and other agencies. Number 6. Curriculum development is a decision-making process made from choices of alternatives. A curriculum developer or designer must decide what contents to teach, philosophy or point of view to support, how to provide for multicultural groups, what methods or strategies, and what type of evaluation to use. Number 7, curriculum development is an ongoing process, meaning continuous monitoring, examination, evaluation, and improvement of curricula are to be considered in the design of the curriculum. As the needs of learners change, as society changes, and as new knowledge and technology appear, the curriculum must change. Number 8, curriculum development is more effective if it is a comprehensive process rather than a piecemeal. A curriculum design should be based on a careful plan, should clearly establish intended outcomes, support resources, and needed time available, and should equip teaching staff pedagogically. Number 9. Curriculum development is more effective when it follows a systematic process. A curriculum design is composed of desired outcomes, subject matter content complemented with references, set of procedures, needed materials and resources, and evaluation procedure which can be placed in a matrix. Number 10, curriculum development starts from where the curriculum is. Curriculum planners and designers should begin with existing curriculum. An existing design is a good starting point for any teacher who plans to enhance and enrich a curriculum. Our next topic is all about curriculum design models. The first one is the subject-centered design. This design focuses on the content of the curriculum. The subject-centered design corresponds mostly to the textbook written for the specific subject. In this instance, schools divide the school hours to different subjects such as reading, grammar, literature, mathematics, science, history, and geography, among others. Most of the schools using this kind of structure aim for excellence in the subject matter content. The next curriculum design is the learner-centered design. This design is anchored on the needs and interests of the child. The learner is not considered as a passive individual, but as one who engages with his environment. One learns by doing. So we believe that learners actively create and construct meanings and understanding as viewed by the constructivist. In the child-centered design, learners interact with the teachers and the environment. Thus, there is a collaborative effort on both sides to plan lessons, select content, and do activities together, meaning learning is a product of the child's interaction with the environment. The third one is the problem-centered design. This curriculum design concentrates on real-life problems of individuals and society, which is based on social issues. Various problems are given emphasis. There are those that center on life situations, contemporary life problems, areas of living, and many others. In this curriculum, content cuts across subject boundaries and must be based on the needs, concerns, and abilities of the students. Now let's have the approaches to curriculum design. For the child or learner-centered design, we will use the child or learner-centered approach. This approach to curriculum design is based on the underlying philosophy that the child is the center of the educational process. It means that the curriculum is constructed based on the needs, interests, purposes, and abilities of the learners. The curriculum is also built upon the learner's knowledge, skills, learning, and potentials. Now, from its design, how should a child-centered or learner-centered curriculum be approached? Let us consider the following. Number 1, letter A. Acknowledge and respect the fundamental rights of the child. Letter B. Make all activities revolve around the overall development of the learner. Letter C. Consider the uniqueness of every learner in a multicultural classroom. Letter D. The recognition of the need for using and exploring many media for self-discovery and self-direction is embraced. Letter E. Consider using differentiated instruction or teaching. And letter F. Provide a motivating, supportive environment learning for all learners. Let's take a look on the example of a child-centered approach. School X is anchored on the theory of multiple intelligences in all its curricular and co-curricular activities. Every classroom is made up of activity centers where the children are given time and opportunity to hone their skills and capacities. The activities for every learner are differentiated according to students' abilities, interests, and needs. Each child is considered important, and each capacity is respected. Learners are not compared with one another. Learners' own performance are compared against targets, which they themselves set. The school does not believe in failure, but in success. Every classroom provides activity center where children can learn on their own with the different learning resource materials. This arrangement allows for the capacity of every learner to be honed. It also allows learning how to learn, hence will develop independence. The teacher's role then is only to guide the learner to what he or she would like to accomplish. The learner sets the goal that can be done within the framework of time, although the minimum requirements of the Department of Education is still honored. At the end of the year, each child's performance is compared to his own set of goals. All throughout the year, the learner is the center of education. The next approach is the subject-centered, which is intended for the subject-centered design. Subject-centered approach is anchored on the curriculum design, which prescribes separate, distinct subjects for every educational level. This approach considers the following principles. Letter A. The primary focus is the subject matter. Letter B. The emphasis is on bits and pieces of information which are detached from life. Letter C. The continuing pursuit of learning outside the school is not emphasized, meaning learning should only take place inside the classroom. Letter D. The subject matter serves as a means of identifying problems in living. Letter E. Learning means accumulation of content or knowledge. And letter F. The teacher's role is to dispense the content. Now, let's take a look on the example using the subject-centered approach. School Y aims to produce the best graduates in town. Each learner must excel in all academic fields in order to be on the top of the rank in every competition. Everyone must master the subject matter content. The higher the level of cognitive intelligence, the better for the learner. Each child must be excellent in all fields of discipline. This is the school that develops more the attitude of competition among themselves. Each student must not be second to anyone. When preparing for a test, this school conducts cram reviews and practice a lot. The school gives emphasis to intellectual development and sets aside emotional and psychomotor development. Success means mastery of the subject matter. In this approach, the focus of learning is mastery of the subject matter in terms of the content. Every student is expected to be always on top in terms of mastery of discipline. Memorization and drill are important learning skills. The school gives emphasis to intellectual development and sets aside emotional, psychomotor, and even value development. Success means mastery of the content. The next approach is the problem-centered. This approach is based on a curriculum design which assumes that in the process of living, children experience problems. Thus, problem solving enables the learners to become increasingly able to achieve complete or total development as individuals. This approach is characterized by the following views and beliefs. Letter A. The learners are capable of directing and guiding themselves in resolving problems. Thus, they become independent learners. Letter B. The learners are prepared to assume their civic responsibilities through direct participation in different activities. And letter C, the curriculum leads the learners in the recognition of concerns and problems and in seeking solutions. The learners are considered problem solvers. Okay, let's have the example of the problem-centered approach. School Z believes that a learner should be trained to solve real-life problems that come about because of the needs, interests, and abilities of learners. Problems persistent in life and society that affect daily living are also considered. Most of the school activities revolve around finding solutions to problems like poverty, drug problems, deterioration of positive values, environmental concerns, and many more. Since the school is using a problem-based design, the same approach is used. Case study and practical work are the teaching strategies that are utilized. Problem-centered approach has become popular in many schools. Since the school is using the problem-centered approach, case study as a method of teaching is popularly utilized. Practical work as a solution to the problem is also used. Thus, development of business skills, social skills, and construction skills to solve specific problems are given emphasis. In conclusion, while the three curricular design approaches are distinct from each other, most practitioners, say the teachers, principals, and the school managers, utilize the three in their design of curriculum. Again, the choice of the design is influenced by philosophical and psychological beliefs of the designer. So the teacher, it depends upon the teacher, the principal, and the school manager's philosophical and psychological beliefs. It is very important that as a curricularist, you will be able to understand the different design models and how to approach each one. As I mentioned on our previous meeting, curriculum development is a dynamic process. In curriculum development, there are always changes that occur that are intended for improvement. To do this, there are models presented to us from well-known curricularists like Ralph Tyler and Hilda Taba, which would help clarify the process of curriculum development. There are many models, but let us use the two for this lesson. The first one is Ralph Tyler's rational linear model. Ralph Tyler at the University of Chicago developed the first model of curriculum development. This model was presented in his book, Principles of Curriculum and Instruction, published in 1949. Tyler argued that curriculum development should be logical and systematic. His model, as shown, presents a process of curriculum development that follows a sequential pattern, starting from selecting objectives to selecting learning experiences, organizing learning experiences, and evaluation. Tyler argued that to develop any curriculum, curriculum makers should respond to four basic questions. Number one, what educational purposes should the school seek to attain? That question is pertaining to step 1, which is selecting objectives. Second question, what educational experiences are likely to attain these objectives? And that pertains to step 2, selecting learning experiences. Third question is, how can these educational experiences be organized? And that is for step 3, organizing learning experiences. And lastly, fourth question is, how can we determine whether these purposes are being attained? And that question is pertaining to the last step, evaluation. Aside from these four questions, Tyler also identified 3 curriculum sources, namely society, students, and subject matter. Accordingly, curriculum makers need to study these sources carefully in order to develop a curriculum. Tyler also pointed out the importance of philosophy of education and psychology of learning to screen the objectives that are included in the curriculum. Let's have the next curriculum development model, the Hilda Tabas Grassroots Rational Model. A follower of Tyler is another curriculum scholar, Hilda Taba. Taba presented her model in her book Curriculum Development, Theory and Practice in 1962. Her model is a modified version of Tyler's model. Tava argued that curriculum development should follow a sequential and logical process, and she suggested for more information input in all phases of curriculum development. Taba also claimed that all curricula are composed of fundamental elements. In her model, Taba outlined 7 steps that should be followed when developing a curriculum. Number 1, diagnosis of needs. Number 2, formulating objectives. Number 3, selecting content. Number 4, organizing content, which is the key concepts, the main ideas and facts. Number 5, selecting learning experiences. Number 6, organizing learning experiences to include teaching strategies for cognitive development and teaching strategies for affective development. And the last step is evaluation. Taba also suggested that curriculum development could be made successful if there was a diagnosis of needs. This would help curriculum workers in understanding the needs of the learners. It would also help in the selection of the goals and objectives and in the selection of contents. Lastly, Taba pointed out that the nature of the objectives determines what learning is to follow. In conclusion, curriculum development is a dynamic process involving different people and procedures. Development connotes changes, which is systematic. A change for the better means alteration, modification, or improvement of existing condition. And to produce positive changes, development should be purposeful, planned, and progressive. Usually, it is linear and follows a logical step-by-step process involving the following phases: planning, design, implementation, and evaluation.